violence and other kind of violence.
Get away! I could be at work, at school, in my car, I can still get shot by the police, but I can get shot anywhere.
So it is what it is.
What's good, YouTube? It's the Black Gen Z Mindset. Make sure you go ahead and like, comment, share, subscribe. Let's get into the video.
Use our community about information and spread unnecessary propaganda. That's how we get shot by the police, because we think that the stuff the media is teaching us is fact, and it's not. And just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So for any conversation people have about what black officers have done, what white officers have done to black people, I can show you 2 other situations where a white officer has done the exact same thing to a white person. All right, so we just have to be careful. We have to be mindful. It's one thing I talk about all the time on my channel. So if anybody has any questions, I can answer anything directly.
Question, Nathan. Do you think that there are racist practices in the criminal justice system?
Absolutely.
Okay, I was just checking.
Yeah, the problem is...
But see, this is an example. I don't even want you to comment. This is an example, right? Because it's like,
Right.
oh, okay, yeah, I'm just checking, right? But then what busts a bubble is the context that you add after you answer the question, because they thought you were just going to stop there. But I'm going to play this out.
Correct. The problem is there's racist people everywhere. And white people are 60% of the population. Black people are 13%. We don't even have our hands in businesses and professions that we should have our hands in. So the more that we don't step up and actually put ourselves in position of power, we're basically saying we're allowing white people to do the job for us. I get insulted, I get dragged, they call me names, they call me a sellout, they call me a slave catcher, they call me an Uncle Tom for being a police officer. I know black men and women who will be great police officers that want to patrol our community but choose not to do it because they feel like they're going to be ridiculed and disrespected by their own people. So again, we have 700,000 police officers that patrol this country of 50 million people, right? And on top of that, 700,000, there's 12% of them are African American. So again, we don't have enough black people who do this job or want to do it. Fear of retaliation, right? We glorify our gang members, we glorify our drug dealers. We do not glorify the positive things in our community. So nobody wants to do the job.
I think we got like 40
so
seconds.
If we're not present.
I got a question. I want to add this point, real. Check this out. In the chat right now, they call him a pig, right? Wow. So wait, let me get to this. Let me take this shit out.
That's what he is.
Wow.
Wait, hold on.
He good.
I got it. You're a pig, and you a dumbass nigga.
No, you the dumbass niggas. I'm tired of y'all.
Fuck you puss ass nigga. That's the dumbass nigga shit. You dumb as fuck. This man do what your sorry ass couldn't do. And
well, you 12 with him then.
Fucking pig.
You a 12 with him then.
So we're going to stop it there. I'm going to bring everybody up. All right, so let's do it like this. Let's go here. Hey, I'm having problems adding y'all. All right, we got that. We there. We're going to go there. So, all right. This is the thing that I want. Let me read some of these super chats and get some of these out of the way. And then I want everybody to be able to join in on the conversation. Matt Armstrong says, shout out to Anton for coming up with this on the fly. I literally just came up with this in the morning. I wake up, I'll just listen, and then I'll just follow my heart, and then whatever happens, happens. Rakeem Berserker says, skills are a lot like muscles. If you don't use them regularly, then eventually you won't have them. Shout out to Rakeem for the $5 Super Bowl. And everybody for the super chats. B says 6 went in on all of you non-FBA on her channel. I don't even know what FBA means. So
Foundational Black American.
I don't know what it means still. I mean, I you know what I'm saying? Like it's
just another it's an acronym for African American.
Yeah, but
it's like the same thing as ADOS.
6 is my family. And I'm okay with civil discourse because I think that somewhere along the way, everybody, and she didn't go up on me, but either way, civil discourse is necessary for us to be able to get to conclusions sometimes. And so I try not to censor anybody as long as they're not disrespectful. And so I'm not going to have any disrespect here because I absolutely love police officers. I think that Nathan is awesome, and I appreciate him for coming up here today. But let me, you was able to really keep your calm and your cool, despite being called what it is that you was called. What is that like? And then I want everybody else, popcorn style, we just going to have a conversation. You guys can say what it is that you want to say. We're going to go from there. What is that like? Are you, the first time it started happening versus now, all of that, what is that like for you?
I will say over the past, since last week, this has been a challenge on YouTube lately because I've been talking about a specific case and involving a gentleman by the name of Odysse. And I think I've been putting myself in spaces where people don't like the police to have the conversation because, again,
looking for the smoke.
Well, you know, yeah, my job that I've volunteered to do is to help bring insight to the problem, to educate our people how to deal with law enforcement encounters so we can reduce the negative outcomes, to teach the law to our community, and then also for me to also get some insight from our community about specific things that they want done differently. And then also when they have questions, for me to be honest and genuine and unbiased and answer those questions and give real-time solutions. So I have real solutions. I do the real work. And so that's the challenge. But then what I realized, unfortunately, is that people have been just trying to use me as a punching bag, which I get it and I understand. But the problem I have is that there's a fraction of our community that doesn't really want to listen. They don't care. They don't want the support. They don't want the support from another officer, let alone a black officer. And so I'm immediately looked at as a sellout. Someone put a comment under my video, said I'm the gatekeeper for white supremacy. And so again, they'll call me things like a slave catcher and things. So I'm used to that. But I think on the road, it was different. When I was actually working, I'm in uniform. And I have young kids say it to me because that's what their parents told them, right? We have the music or entertainment. They educate our people on not liking the police, right? Glorifying bad behavior, deviant behavior. So again, I do know the history and I understand the trauma. I don't want to discredit that there are officers who abuse their power. So I get it. So the trust issue was there. There's a broken trust. Absolutely agree. The media is very, very abusive. Yep. When it comes to putting out false narratives and false information. They never show when white people get killed by the police at all. They don't talk about it. They don't market it. And at the same time, they also don't put the same effort in marketing black officers that kill black people or black officers that shoot and kill white people. It's not what they produce, and it's confusing our people. And it's done by design. And we are susceptible to it, right? We're falling for it. And I think when I'm working, it never bothered me because I understood. But now that I'm retired and I'm like, man, I want to volunteer and give my time. No one is paying me to do it. I'm doing it because I see there's a problem and I'm getting pushback from my own people that I'm trying to help. And so in a moment last week, man, it was really hurtful. Because I was just like, man, it's hard doing YouTube. It's not easy.
Oh, no. They think that you gonna get off of here and that everything is cool. And just because you got the camera in front of you that you're supposed to take it all. They don't think that you're a real person at all.
Man, I don't know let me tell you something. It's a lot of work.
Oh, I know.
Right.
I know. I put myself in the bullseye. I put myself right in the middle of the crosshair every single day. Every day.
It's a lot. And it's, what people don't understand is me doing this can get me hurt, right? God forbid, right? I'm not wishing that on myself. I get hurt from both sides of the fence, from the law enforcement side.
I can see that.
And from the black community. I put my face out here So then I'm looking at it this week. I'm just like, damn, what is the point? Nobody really cares.
Oh, I do.
You know what I mean? So
and that's why
but
see, that's why I champion you and I celebrate you, and then everybody else can go ahead and join in the conversation. I just want to give you your props again. I champion you, I celebrate you. And when people like, I mean, I know logic is a little bit more uncouth, right? You know what I'm saying? You jump off the bridge a little bit, but we still understand what it is that he meant because we passionate about the fact. And honestly, I don't think that it's that a lot of us don't appreciate you. I think that the loudest voices in the rooms are often the ones that's the most toxic, which is the narrative that I'm trying to change. In that if we agree with you, I equate it to going to a restaurant and you having a great experience. Most times you have a great experience, you leave, you talk about it, oh, that's awesome, and you come back and so on and so forth. The majority of the people that leave reviews, unless you ask the people that have a good time at the restaurant, are the ones that have a issue. So those are the ones that's going to have the loudest voices. And so what we have to do personally is start changing the narrative and having different conversations in which when we see things are good, we're not going to just sit on our hands and be quiet. We need to be louder voices than the ones that's toxic in order to champion so that we can have some balance, because it doesn't mean that there aren't bad officers, but I don't judge people by the job that they do. I evaluate people on an individual basis. But with that being said, you guys are more than welcome to comment, ask Nate anything you want to ask him. The floor is yours. Do your thing.
Yeah, you guys, it's open. You can ask away.
Oh, and make sure y'all subscribe to his channel. The link to his channel, I tagged him in the title. So if you click the title, you can go straight to his channel and make sure you subscribe to his channel. Super awesome content. I love Nate. Go ahead, y'all. Y'all can do your thing.
Okay, so I wanted to say something toward the criminal justice system and people saying, oh, the criminal justice system is racist and whatnot. And the corrections that have, or the quote unquote corrections that have been made within like the past few years to the criminal justice system. Nathan, you said you were in Atlanta, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I'm in Atlanta too. And I do a YouTube channel, Black Gen Z Mindset, on crime in Atlanta, like Decatur, surrounding areas, and, you know, just crime across the nation. And what I found is that a lot of these officers are dealing with the same issues all across the nation when it comes to policing in the community or the Black community. So when people say, oh, the criminal justice system is racist and therefore there needs to be an overhaul in in the way that I guess justice is served, I think it's a lot of times it's BS. For one, there's this narrative that Black men are unjustly being arrested. I'm gonna tell you what, if you ever been arrested, if you ever been to jail, if you ever been to prison, 99% of them dudes did that shit. Straight up. There's no doubt about it. 99% of them dudes did that shit. Okay. Actually, it's not. Let
me pause you real quick because I don't want to lose anything that you're saying. I want to make sure I add before you continue to go. From being on the inside, how did I look at the criminal justice system? People say the system is racist. It's the system itself is not racist. It's the people who operate the system that are the problem, right? The system will run exactly how it's supposed to run if you have the right people in it. Mm-hmm. When we talk about reform, you need reform to identify bad actors who are corrupt, who are racist, or what have you, who have no business being there. You need a way to remove them out, identify them properly, and actually remove them out of the system. That is what it is. The system is not quote unquote designed to keep Black people down in failure, right? Like that's not true. Now, what I will say though is, according to the Sentencing Commission, this is a fact, that when you're comparing sentencing for a crime, Black versus white, a white man commits the same crime as a Black man, the sentencing is 20% longer, right, than a white man if he committed the same exact crime, as now there's context to it that's missing. It could be criminal history. Right? Criminal history is a big factor in sentencing. And I did not see how the data equated for that, right? Added into that. So that, but the sentencing disparities is a real thing, right? That's something that needs to be adjusted. It needs to be handled appropriately. We need fair sentencing. For example, I did a case review on a situation where a white male had committed assault on a woman, right? Inappropriate assault, you know, for the sake of YouTube.
Yeah.
And he was convicted. He assaulted 4 women in New York, but he was wealthy. The judge said he suffered from affluenza. If you guys aren't familiar with that, affluenza, right? And the 4 women were underage minors. He got like 60 months of probation. He never got jail time. Now, you have a brother do the same thing with 1 woman, and the woman may have lied or didn't lie, doesn't matter, and he's doing 10 years off the bat.
But would you say that's about racism, or would you say that's about economics? If you pay for a lawyer and all these things, like if you look at
that's racism. That's racism.
Well, look at Ketanji Brown Jackson. She has multiple cases that she presided over where she let off, chomos and stuff like that with very light sentences, not even reaching the minimum sentencing. So would you say she's racist for giving these people a break? I also wanted to make a comment
one thing at a time. I would say in reference to that, let me show you how this thing works behind the scenes. What are one of the biggest issues? If you have, look what your boy Jussie Smollett did, right? What did he have that you don't have? You're not a celebrity. You don't have money. You don't have influence, and you don't have power. He's black. He's gay. He's part of the LGBT community, and he's half Jewish. This brother is a triple minority with money. So again, you have R. Kelly as a perfect example of someone whose celebrity has money. He circumvented around the law. Unfortunately, the criminal justice system is not completely blind. If you just so happen to know somebody in the right places, you can get around some stuff, right? And so you could be George Zimmerman. People didn't realize this. George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin. People didn't know that his dad was a big time federal judge.
Yeah,
you know, that's power. Again, this is there's people who have power and there's people who do not. You have white people who suffer from the criminal justice system too. You don't ever hear about it, but then you have some people who have power and they're able to circumvent. It's not fair at all, right? But these are the issues in the system. And so if you know someone, right, you're good.
I wanted to make a comment. I wanted to make a comment about this system.
Let me throw a point in there right quick.
Go
ahead.
Hold on one second.
The reason why I
wasn't able to finish
my
point. Anyways, go ahead.
Go ahead, bro. You've been talking all the time. Go ahead.
We're not going nowhere, y'all. Like, we got time. Go ahead.
All right, cool. Well, I wanted to make a point because I do a lot of these stories, and a lot of the issue is that we talk about the racist criminal justice system, and I think that it's racist in a different way, okay? We have these policies like bail reform, no cash bail, all of these sweeping reformations that have recently happened and now have the streets on fire. If you're in Atlanta, you'll see that basically this is what Andre Dickens said, the mayor of Atlanta now, who came after Keisha Lance Bottoms. He says that there are about 1,000 people who are repeat offenders who are committing a bulk of the crime in Atlanta. So these guys are getting arrested by the police, meaning the police are doing their job. They're going to court, and then these soft on crime DAs and prosecutors are letting them back out to get back on the street, violent offenders, and terrorize the community. And they're also letting more people out because of the pandemic. So these are negative effects that affect the Black community, because when these violent offenders get arrested and the cops are doing their job in arresting these people, the courts just throw them back in the streets. And this is not just Atlanta. You see this in New Orleans. You see this in LA. You see it in Dallas. You see it in New York. You see it in Portland. You see it in every major city. Hold on. You see it in every major city where there is Democratic leadership. So
okay, so let me speak on that. You said it, Democratic leadership, right? These are predominantly black cities, right? Democratic leadership. Now, again, I'm not a politics guy, but these are the policies in these cities that Democrats are pushing out. Why are they pushing that out? Because we want criminal justice reform, and we believe that reform should be done in the eyes of releasing people out, right? People need to be out early. They need to, listen, I've worked cases where a gentleman has robbed somebody, attempted to shoot them, and I'm taking them to their first appearance in front of the judge, and they tell the judge that they're an outstanding citizen. This was an honest mistake, right? And hey, I'm a dad. I work. I have a job. I'm in school. Can you please release me on bail? You right? And so again, they convince the judge, and the judge's like, yeah, all right, we'll give you an opportunity to bond out. They give them bond. So you're absolutely correct. The Sacramento shooting, right? One of the brothers was he's out on parole for a violent offense. You know, he got released. He was paroled early. Here's the question, though, because unfortunately, there's a segment of our community that believes that we should get lesser sentences for certain violent crimes. And the reality is these judges release these people right back into the same community that they terrorized. One would argue, if this was the judges' community, would they be so willing to release them back into their own community? And the question is probably no, right? So how does it impact the judge if the judge is not a recipient of the violence that this person is going to be willing to do to his own community? So again, these are democratic policies. Again, but these don't affect the people who are actually making those policies because they don't live in these communities that these people are being released to. Yes, ma'am.
Can you speak also on how they move the goalposts too? Like, I don't think people understand that the DA does not have to file, and that the DA's main goal is their stats. They want to win. So, like I know in California, they moved the goalpost on SV to make it a non-violent crime, which is an actual violent crime. But they changed it over to a non-violent crime, so now they can say, hey, our stats have gone down. Look, our non-violent crimes have gone way down. And all they've done is done a word salad on the penal system.
Yes. It's politics because again, crime impacts business. So, people look at this. Yes. This is a lot of major corporations, and Anton can speak to this. When you have big businesses, they're looking at the crime in the area and they say, hold on, we don't want to invest in this city or in this community because look at the stats. There's too many violent crimes. So you'll have people on the back end, the politicians that play around with the language to entice businesses to come in. I've watched it happen in DeKalb County. I watched them redraw the county lines around the crime. Yep. Just to say that crime does not exist in this area. It's disgusting.
But drag the body across the train tracks.
Look at CVS and Walgreens.
Exactly.
Look at CVS and
it's a corona problem.
Right.
Like the CVS's and Walgreens in LA and downtown LA, where there are, huge crime issues, they're all leaving.
Yes.
They're all leaving because they handcuff the police officers, they handcuff the security guards. So when even in New York, there was a video of Michael Rappaport. He was just watching this guy shoplifting. The security guard's right there. He looking at him, but you can't do anything because if the security guards jump on these dudes, it's racist.
Well, here's a good point right here. Keisha Lance Bottoms destroyed. Well, I won't say she did it. But she did a lot of problems, right? She decriminalized marijuana in the city of Atlanta. She decriminalized shoplifting. So of course, what are these kids are gonna do? If they can't get in trouble, they can't get arrested. I'm gonna tell you what would happen. They would go to the mall in Atlanta, Lenox Mall, these top-notch malls, and they'll go in there, they'll do smash and grabs, they'll go into the expensive stores, steal everything, and they don't fear getting arrested. So if you decriminalize shoplifting, then what's the deterrent? There is none. We're the ones committing the crimes. One would argue that she's even putting us in more danger, right? By taking that away. So then what do these kids do? They come to where I work at, and I work outside of Atlanta. I was working in Dunwoody. These same kids think, because they don't know the law, they think that that's all throughout Georgia. They go to Gwinnett County, they go to Clayton, they go to Sandy Springs, and no, the rules are still here. Nothing's decriminalized. So then you take that same mentality that Atlanta allowed you to have, and you go into another city, another jurisdiction, and commit a same crime, but now you're committing a felony because you took maybe 2 Gucci bags, and that's a felony, right? And so you steal 1 pair of shoes, that's a felony. And so now you're 17 years old with a felony because you shoplifted 1 pair of shoes, and you forgot that the border of Atlanta stopped 2 miles down. Now you're a 17-year-old man or woman in jail for a felony, and no one's dropping that charge. So we end up putting ourselves in these uncompromising positions because we get too comfortable with these politicians who are removing accountability and responsibility off of us. They say, hey, there's too many Black people being arrested for these crimes, instead of saying there's too many Black people committing these crimes. Right. How about we talk to the parents? How about we talk to the kids and get them not to do the behavior instead of taking away the actual penalty for committing the offense in the first place? Right. Why do we get coddled as a community? I don't understand that. As if we're not intelligent enough to know from right from wrong. They disrespect us when they make statements like that. Right? So again, Black people are doing this disproportionately. They're committing more marijuana offenses. Well, marijuana is still illegal in Georgia, right? You can't shoplift in Georgia. You can't break into people's homes in Georgia. Why are Black kids given a pass to commit crime? You guys, I don't understand it. These are the politicians making these policies here in Georgia.
Hold on, let me get to some of these super chats. Okay. Michael Richardson says, Anton, I grew up in Detroit from 1967 riots to 1986. The police in Detroit was always crooked, killed drug dealers and stole their money. Incidents not even recorded. I'm guessing that's what he was saying.
Very true.
Yeah, that is true.
Very true.
Let me get to a few more. My boy Thinking Man's podcast, Ken says, who codes and determines the offense/charge once a suspect is arrested?
Oh, that's a good one.
He said,
who determines the charge once the suspects get arrested?
The laws are
your probable cause, Nathan.
The laws are already on the books, so whatever they're charged with, they're charged with. The problem is the judges are using their own discretion to let these people out.
But you still, if I'm not mistaken, so correct me if I'm wrong, they can determine what if they want to hit you with this charge or they want to hit you with that charge, right?
Yeah, correct. Or they can lessen the charge. The one thing that Keisha Lance Bottoms did as well is she removed the mandate that people had to come to their court dates for misdemeanor charges. So now 85% of the people who have a misdemeanor in Atlanta, and this is current, I just did a story on this 2 days ago, 85% of the people are not showing up to their court dates. And now the city council, they're saying, oh, we need to change this law. And this, like, how could you be so stupid to pass a law in the first place?
Hold on. Let me get to some more.
If you remove the mandate to come to your...
Let me get to a couple more. Nat says, Nat, bro, was good. Please explain why it's important to have people that look like us policing our community.
Yeah, shout out to Dre. That's the homie right there. We went to the police academy together. He works for the DA's office now. And again, that's a brother working in the DA's office. So when we talk about what does he get to see, he gets to make sure people are getting charged appropriately that look like him. He gets to make sure that it's consistent and equitable across the board, right? If you're not in the room, guess what? You don't have a voice, you know? And again, that's important. And it's just to keep everybody honest and also to make sure that people aren't circumventing around the law, you know, because that's how corruption works. So when you get a chance to see what's going on, you're like, hold on. When you're a fair person and you have integrity, that's what we need in this profession. That's what we need all throughout the criminal justice system. People who have integrity. Your skin color shouldn't matter at all. Do you have the heart for the job? Are you doing the right things? Period. So it does matter when you have representation. It matters a lot, you guys.
It says, shout out to Nathan. People will chew on the lies but won't swallow the truth. Well said last night from Mac Armstrong. We got Dre again. Dre Blanco says, I disagree. Just because the officer made the arrest doesn't mean they did their job. You have to complete a thorough investigation, then present a sound case with the district attorney's office.
Dude, most officers are not investigators. There's a difference between an officer who is patrolling and doing their job by making the arrest and an investigator, a homicide investigator or a theft investigator. There's a difference. So just the officer did his job by making the arrest. It's the investigator's job to follow up and substantiate the charges that were filed on that suspect. So to say that the officer is not doing his job, bro, he made the arrest. Even if they substantiate the charge, the judge still has the discretion to say, you know what, we're going to let you out on a low bail and give you a court date in 2025. Most of these people's court dates are being pushed back. So a lot of these violent criminals who are getting arrested, they're like, oh, there ain't no consequences until 2025, so I can get back on the streets on supervised release. Look at Chicago. There are 150 murder suspects in the streets of Chicago right now on supervised release with an ankle monitor. Tell me they're not going to murder again.
Same thing in LA.
Shout out to Gail at night. Hold on, we're going to get to it. And let me get one more in here.
I'm here on the corner of MLK and Frederick Douglass, where a shooting just took place. And as you can see, it's a pretty rough area. So I'm basically risking my life reporting on this madness. So make sure you do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. Like the video, hell, share the video. And make sure you go ahead and leave a comment down in the comments section to continue the discussion on how we can find solutions to all this son violence in the streets. I'm Janquavius Jackson, here live, reporting from Atlanta, Georgia, BGZM News 17.
One more, then we're going to get back to cooking. Omar Smith says the judge determines charges which carries over to trial. It's called a preliminary hearing.
Mm-hmm. So let me dive into what he said, and then Tommy, I want to get your thoughts. Here's the challenge as an officer. As an officer, we are the backbone of the criminal justice system. If the officer who makes initial contact and starts the investigation, if the officer does a poor job, everything is done and out the window. Everything. I've seen officers blow a narcotics case because they violated somebody's Fourth Amendment rights. Right? They didn't have the probable cause to do the search of the car or just overall do their job properly. By the time they get to the DA's office or the judge gets it, it's no good. They throw it out. The case is washed. Right? We see this with
forbidden tree.
Yes.
Sorry, fruit from the forbidden tree.
The fruit from a poisonous tree. So what happens? You got it, tongue twister.
Sorry.
So an example of that would be the Breonna Taylor case, right? Those who don't know, the investigator, what did the investigator do? He actually lied on the warrant, the search warrant for the judge, and gave it to the judge. What did he lie about? He lied about the connection of the package that arrived at Breonna Taylor's house and tried to connect it to her ex-boyfriend, who was the actual drug dealer. Why they do that? Because they assume she had the stash house where the money is going to be at. So they wanted a search warrant for her place, even though it had nothing to do with the raid and the arrest of the actual drug, the actual drug dealers themselves, right? So how did he pull it off? When we're going to do a search warrant on a house and we're tying someone who's not connected to the person we're trying to arrest, it's on us to prove that there's an actual connection. They had photos of him picking up a box, right, out of her apartment. What does the investigator have to prove? That box, that parcel has his name and information on it, meaning that he's getting mailed directly to her apartment. They needed to use the postal inspector investigator to prove that. They lied on the warrant and said that the investigator was able to check and confirm that the drug dealer had his name on a package that was sent to her address. They lied and made it up. The moment that lie got signed by them Everything after that is thrown out. Everything after that very moment is no good in the court of law, you guys. The officers are operating against the law in that moment. They're operating outside of the law. And so again, they don't even talk about that in all of its entirety in that case, you know, so it's really, really surprising. And they never told anybody that they were doing a raid on Breonna Taylor's house, you guys. So again, these are a corrupt unit, narcotics unit, and the police department who decided to go off on their end and do this raid on her house. They had no equipment. They had no body shield. They did not have the cameras activated, you guys. So yeah, the corruption is real. You have a small team of officers that operate like a cell, like training day, and they do their own dirt behind the scenes. It doesn't mean the entire police department's corrupt, but it's easy for a small group of officers to do corrupt things and not be seen, right? And so we have to understand how corruption works within the police department and how they're able to get away with it.
Well, there's another.
Wait one second. Tommy, I know Tommy got something, brother. You've been dropping the gems for a minute. Go ahead, T.
So to speak on something that you said, a lot of what people like to say is what you just said, that, you know, because it's a couple of bad ones, that it doesn't make the whole department that way. My pushback on that would be, I would agree with you, but statements like what you just made, and I heard another officer say this, it was one of the shootings, I can't remember, he was on, I believe it was Power 105 in New York, and he was talking about how he couldn't even give his name, because he gave his name, you know, after giving the opinion that he gave, that he'd be in trouble.
Quickly, okay? I'm gonna bring you back up later.
So when you make a statement and you say that, you know, I could face consequences from both sides, for me, if I was gonna make an argument and say that the majority of officers are good, there would be no consequence for you on their side, because they're good. And what you're putting out there is good and fair. So the fact that you're telling me that it's a culture, and this is coast to coast, because I've heard this from plenty of officers, and we all know this, that there's a culture in policing that is accepted, that if you go against them, you can face consequences, literally pushes back on the point that most of them are good. Because if you're, in my eyes, and I'm open to being wrong, but in my eyes, if you're following that, then I put you in the bed. The same way as if your partner do something and you don't say nothing. Just because you didn't say nothing don't mean that you're not putting that same box. So for me, you know, I never try to paint everything with a broad brush, but when you make statements and you literally telling us that you can face consequences from the very people that you're telling me are good people.
Well, let me pause you there, T. Because you make a great point. Let me bring some context to it. Let's look at it like a number line. You got 0 in the middle, you got negative to the left, you got positive on the right. What we have in police culture, we have extremists, right? We got extremists. We got some police officers that operate like a damn cult, right? That's just what it is. They are like a fraternity, right? You don't talk about fraternity business with people who are not a part of the fraternity. It is an unhealthy piece of police culture. It's very real, right? Very real. Then you have people who are in the middle, right? Then you have some people who are all the way to the other side, to the point that we're like, why are you even doing this job? Right? In our community, in the Black community, what do we have in our community? We have people who are almost like a cult when it comes to Black community, right? You hear them say B1, which I'm all for B1. I'm all about Black empowerment. I love it. But at the same time, I love everybody the same, right? But I have a specific love for Black people because I'm Black. And I understand, you know, the issues. I understand the struggle. So again, I'm able to see the nuances from a mature place of mind, right? I don't blame white people for everything. I just don't. They're not our enemy, right? So again, shout out to the young lady down here. I know she. Bear with us. So,
no, you can call me Karen is what I guess my name is now.
No, let me establish that right away. This is what we do here. Is we different here, and I've always said this, and I'm always going to continue to stand on this. I rock with people based off of their character. I don't align with people based off of race. I don't do that. We don't play that here. We got a whole group of community of people that is doing the work, and we rock with everybody. So if anybody has anything that they want to say or contribute to the conversation or want to continue to rock with the platform, that's what we stand on. It is what it is. If people don't like that, then that's whatever. We just gonna keep it moving. But we rock with people based off of their character, and we evaluate them based off of that. So everybody is more than welcome. Every single person. I don't care if you white, black, Asian. I don't care if you, what they call them, little people. I call them midgets, but maybe I'm off on that. Maybe I need to be a little bit more educated. But I don't play that game here. So you cool. You family as far as I'm concerned, just like everybody else.
Perfect. That's what I like to hear. So Tommy, the issue is we have extremists on both sides, in the black community and in law enforcement. You know, again, a perfect example is we seen it last night during the conversation on Lapeef, when I had people automatically saying, hey, we hate the police. I'm like, hold on, but I'm black though, right? Nah, I don't care. Fuck 12, right? I'm like, but hold on, I'm black, I'm trying to help. It doesn't matter. There's no one, they don't want to accept it, right? I could save the lives. It doesn't matter. They don't like the police. They've had a bad experience, right? And so I get that. I understand that there's trauma sometimes there. There's misinformation, misguided, and some people just see the issues and they're like, I just can't get with it. So I understand it. So in police culture, we have to understand that there is an extremist group in law enforcement. People call like the blue wall of silence, that stuff is real, right? It's real and it's unfortunate. But again, we have to make sure we acknowledge the other side. So when I say that I can get hurt on both sides, meaning I have people in my own community that will take my life simply because of the job that I do. Has nothing to do with who I am as a person, right? How loving I am. The fact I used to give out gift cards to the homeless with $10 on them in our community, right? I never told anybody that. It's not anything that I share with people in uniform, you know? And so again, people don't see that side, but they will take my life. You saw me dragged down the interstate, right? By someone who looks like me. Again, I didn't ask for that. I almost died. Then I have people on the blue side who are like, hey, this guy is talking about how he can expose corruption. He's talking about how he can fix these problems. What is the problem with power? People don't want to give it up, right? People don't want to give it up. When you get power, Tommy, it's a good feeling. But if you listen, every person was not designed. I look at it as a burden sometimes. It is a burden. It is a burden. And everybody's not designed to wield power, right? Just because God gave you a mouth doesn't mean you should speak. So again, power is not meant for everybody. And at the end of the day, this is what we're looking at when people feel threatened. Listen, in DeKalb County, I watched them. Well, I didn't watch them. But they had a sheriff who was going against the corruption in DeKalb County. My man at the bottom might know about this. He's in Atlanta too. And guess what? They assassinated him on his driveway. His name is Sheriff Brown. You can look it up. Why? What was he doing? He was challenging the status quo. And he was going to expose corruption in the sheriff's department. He was black. And they sent shooters. They sent some hitters out, right? Uniform hitters to get him. Why? Because there's money in this thing. And we all know it. And I'm not a fool, so don't get it twisted, right? I know how far to take it. That's just the name of the game. So my objective is to make sure our people and nationwide people, right? Everybody as a whole, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, have better outcomes with law enforcement. There's only so much I'm willing to expose, right? Because at the end of the day, what's the point if I can't see it through, right? So we got to be real. Unfortunately, it is what it is. Corruption, political corruption, it goes all the way to the top. And I know where the ceiling is appropriate for me.
But hold on. Let me get to some of these super chats. Omar Smith says a judge had to sign off on the search warrant
Yeah, the judge got qualified immunity though, so the judge can't be punished for the lie that the officer told. You know, that's the power of qualified immunity.
Michael Richardson says, in the Navy, if there is one bad apple, all the apples are bad. NCIS will investigate and bring down the whole unit.
The problem with law enforcement is that the police are investigating the police, right? So you need honestly, you know, if I have to discipline myself again, how practical is that going to be, right? So that's the biggest problem. You need
look, and
hold on. We're gonna go to Tommy first because I know he wanted to speak, and then I want to go.
My pushback
Maria,
on that would
and
be
then, we gonna do it popcorn style again.
If we're gonna make the statement that the majority of these cops are on the good side, I don't understand how that environment could even succeed. Because if the majority were these good cops, then they outnumbered the bad ones and they just get rid of the bad ones. And that's my thing is, it seems like the culture just kind of accepts it instead of pushes back on it. Like I said, a perfect example with the sheriff, like essentially it's accepted that if you expose too much, they'll send somebody. Like that's the environment that they're working in, is if you expose too much of this, then somebody's going to come get you. And for you to have that kind of environment, you're essentially trying to tell me that the minimum is running a majority, essentially is what I'm saying. Because if you're making an argument that majority are good, then you're telling me that this minority small piece essentially runs the entire department, because essentially everybody falls in line when something happens.
No, not necessarily. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but let me bring it like this. Think of it like the best way to describe it is like this. Unfortunately, the problem with law enforcement is it's ever evolving, right? Meaning, again, the Atlanta chief just got removed, right? Once you take the head away, a new one arrives. So you can change the entire culture of the department.
Hell Hydra.
Cut
off one head to shall replace him.
Exactly. This is true. So every police department, you could have a police department that's running very efficiently, right? With a lot of good structure and good policy. Then that police chief decides to retire and a new one takes on the mantle and he or she decides to run it differently. You have then essentially changed the entire direction of that department within a snap of a finger. What do we see the same thing where, like in this country, right? You went from what? You went from Obama, then you went from Trump, now you're in Biden. These are all different leaders running a massive organization, and everything changes based on who the leader is. Police departments run the exact same way. So look at it like that. Is everybody in government bad because you have one person at the top that did something bad, or they have bad agendas, or they're working bad angles? No. And sometimes there's what we call plausible deniability. You have people within the organization that are not aware. They're just not aware. What happens, right? Training Day is a perfect example of this. You have a narcotics unit where you have a head supervisor who's corrupt, and he corrupted the people in his unit. He tried to corrupt another one. That one wasn't following along. What did he try to do? Take him up out of here, right? These are real things. These are real scenarios. Yeah. But what if he actually managed to expose that narcotics unit and get them in trouble? Cool, then you shut him down. In New York, not too long ago, you had an investigator who was lying on cases, right? And they had to dismiss every single case that he was involved in. But he got away with it for so long, right? So again, I think the thing is, we have to look at it. This is a massive organization. And within an organization, it's easy to hide within a small group of people, right? You might need just a couple key people to actually make it work. The problem with police departments is that there's no citizen overview or oversight of the department. meaning it's very easy to keep everything to yourself, right? Damage control. You might have someone to say, hey, they did something, they messed it up. We don't want the public to get it. We want to clean it up within ourselves, fire them, do this, but don't let the public know. It'll damage trust. Well, that right there is damaging trust, right? But if you had someone who actually can see directly through the department, have ultimate transparency, that right there will eliminate, because where shadows exist is where corruption thrives. It's like a fungus, right? It needs darkness, shade, and moisture. Next, you know, people start acting up. So again, I believe, me personally, looking at the outcome, we have to also look at the different problems in policing. It's not all corruption. A lot of it is just unprofessional behavior, right? A lot of the complaints from policing, from the data I looked at, people do not like the professionalism. Then you have people who are extremely biased because they got arrested. So now they want to report that they've been treated unfairly. I had to pistol whip a guy one time and he filed a complaint against me. But then he left out all the context behind why I had to hit him in the head with the pistol, right? This was before we had tasers. We didn't have all that fancy stuff that these guys have now, and they still can't do the job good, right? So what happened? Home invasion, he tied somebody up along with his friend. He jumped from the second balcony. I'm chasing after him. He had a gun on him. I pulled my gun. He had his hands up. He kept walking towards me. My back hit the wall. What do? Do I put my gun up and grab him, right? So my gun is out. He got closer. He ran towards me. And reaction, I slapped him in the face with the gun, right? I couldn't shoot him. So again, they looked at it and said, hey, you're not authorized to pistol whip a citizen or a criminal. I said, well, hey, this is what happened. What was I supposed to do? They're like, okay, good. All right, we'll let that slide, right? So again, these are the unique situations officers have to think on their feet. I could have shot him. Would that have been justified? I don't know. They would have said, what was he going to do? He's going to try to grab my gun, right? So again, when we look at all these different scenarios, we have to ask ourselves, what are people complaining about? You have to really dive into situation by situation by situation. What do we know with law enforcement? 10 million people in 2019 were arrested by the police. 10 million people. In that year, only 1,100 people were killed approximately from a law enforcement encounter. You mean to tell me out of 10 million people arrested, 1,100 were killed? What were the 1,100 doing that the 10 million people didn't do, right? What's the difference between those encounters? Check this out. 60 million people reported at least one contact with law enforcement. Out of 60 million people, you mean 1,100 people died? Well, the numbers actually make the police look like they know what they're doing. Right. See, we see things, and we see things based on how the media shows us. But when you start looking at the data, you're like, damn, the police did a damn good job that year. Now, I'm not saying that.
Hold on, y'all. I do want to get to Maria. What's going on, Maria?
No, you're fine. It's very interesting.
What are your thoughts about all of this in a general sense?
Well, I live in one of the, I think the number 6 or 7 worst neighborhoods in the United States.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I have a 1 in 100 chance of dying every time I walk.
Jesus Christ.
God.
Where in California are you from?
I'm not. I'm actually in Texas. So just to give you guys an idea.
Got what it is?
I know all my neighbors. I love all my neighbors. And I feel really safe. Now, I'm not going to Walgreens at 10 o'clock at night because that's just silly.
Right.
You know, so I'm smart about it. But within 3 months of me moving in here, my house got broken into. And I had to call the police out.
Why can't you go to Walgreens at 10 at night? Like, what?
Oh, hold on. I want her to finish. I want her to finish her statement before you go.
Okay.
So I wasn't home, and it just so happened that when I came home, I was home by myself. My son was actually traveling at that time. And I called the police officer to come over. And by the time a female came over, very young, I think just a couple of years out of the academy, very young, blonde hair, blue-eyed young girl came out.
I'm here on the corner of MLK and Medgar Evers, and it's a very tranquil scene compared to just a couple hours ago where a drive-by shooting just took place. Excuse me,
I'm getting live updates as we speak. I've just been updated to the amount of casualties from this drive-by shooting, and I'm getting reports that 2 people were actually declared deceased and 27 others were shot and injured but are in stable condition. And although we must pray for the families of the fallen, we must also praise God for the aim of the super gremlin. If you want to know more about the victims of this crime, make sure you add BGZM News 17 on Patreon at www.patreon.com/BlackGenZMindset. Also, don't forget to like the video, share the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and comment on the video to continue the discussion on how we can find solutions to all this gun violence in the streets. For more hard-hitting news coverage from the community, by the community, I'm Jenquavius Jackson, here live, reporting from Atlanta, Georgia, BGZM News 17.
And cut.
All right, dog. Let's get the out of here before these niggas come back.
Whoa. Yo. Ain't that nigga J.
Nah, that ain't me. That ain't me.
He just went live
That
with
ain't
that
me.
funky ass suit
That's
on.
that nigga. That's not me.
Hey, get that nigga.
Jenquavius Jackson, here live, reporting from Atlanta, Georgia. Pray for me.
Young girl came out, and I was like, I was shocked that she would be working in my area. And she said no. She goes, and I know a lot of people, and she goes, I like the neighborhood. She goes, I don't particularly like working at night. But I'll tell you guys, and I'm not saying that there's not corruption, because I know there's corruption. Okay, I'm by no means saying that. But as somebody who came on here and nobody knows anything about me, I just got called Karen. Why are you bringing white people up here? Why are you doing all of this? But I'm 100% Puerto Rican.
Couldn't fool me.
So you guys made assumptions on the color of my skin and what I look like.
Well, I was already looking at your name, Maria, and all of that. So I was putting together the context clues before you even said anything. But go ahead.
So, oh no, I get called on TLA's chat. I get called the Irish girl.
I was thinking Irish because of red hair. So you got me.
Yeah.
Pero tú hablo español.
Claro que hablo español. Si nací en Ponce, Puerto Rico, así que no empieces con eso tampoco. No.
Bueno.
The assumptions are real.
Despacio, mommy, despacio.
The assumptions are real. So that's all I'm saying is that that it goes every which way. And I don't deny that I'm Hispanic. I've never, within 5 minutes of anybody meeting me, they'll know that I'm Hispanic because I am not ashamed of it. I'm very proud of who I am. I'm proud of my heritage. I am proud of my mother. I'm proud of my father. I'm proud of my entire family. So I don't have to, even though I can, as people say, pass. But I do get it. And I get that for me, it's very different. But racism is alive in every culture.
Yes.
And we need to get rid of it in our culture. Because I don't have that, I guess. Because in Puerto Rico, it's not about what you look like. If I tell another Puerto Rican that I'm Puerto Rican, they don't even doubt it. It is only Americans that doubt it and question whether I speak Spanish. You know? So for me, and I'm not saying that there's not bad but there's bad people everywhere. There's crappy people come in every color, shape, size, ethnicity, and sexual orientation. That is life. So.
Oh, don't worry about it. I catch it. Listen, I get called every name in the book. I get called coon, everything, because I choose not to. Yeah, bro, because I choose not to align myself based off of
anybody who
color, and I align myself more or less based off of character. And I like to evaluate people and see. But even if somebody, let's just say hypothetically, and this is just my sentiment, even if somebody is completely different than me, I want to know. Like, I want to see what their experience is like. I want to understand it. I want that whole experience. Y'all can go ahead and cook. I gotta go run pick up my DoorDash. I'm Logic today.
I was just gonna say anybody who tries to hold the Black community accountable is going to be considered a coon, at least in the online space. I also wanted to address something. I hate when people try and make the policing thing a black and white thing. You mentioned the Derwin Brown situation. I mean, he was killed by a black officer, right? Yeah. I mean, he was killed by a black officer off of the instruction of another officer who got voted out, Sidney Dorsey, and he was killed by this guy named Melvin Walker. So all three of those brothers were black. So it had nothing to do with, the white cop is trying to get the black cop out of here. Nah, it's just people are interested in their own interests. They want to cover their own asses. So when you talk about the blue shield or the blue wall, whatever, it's like anybody is going to cover anybody's asses. When we look at the Amir Locke situation, most black people are like, and it's a tragedy. It's sad that it happened. But then you have to also look at who was he surrounding himself with, right? The people that he was surrounding himself with were very dangerous people. And he was in a situation.
The same level as the criminal.
Say what now?
So now we hold the police to the same standard as criminals. Criminals are criminals. They're going to do what they do. I expect more of a police officer. Excuse me.
Well, I mean,
correct.
No, I agree I'm just with that one.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean,
but hold on, let me address that. Let me address that real quick. Just because you have a family member who is doing something or operating outside the law does not mean your family members who are innocent and not committing any crimes. That has nothing to do with them. You can't control your family members, right? If I have a family member who's a criminal and they're being investigated, that has nothing to do with me, right? That doesn't make I'm not guilty because, one of my family members is misbehaving in life, right? So the Amir Locke situation is very interesting because I'm gonna tell you, the shoot was not a good shoot. The problem I have with law enforcement is that if we're not trained properly and we go into situations, we can very much well instigate bad scenarios just off the fact that we don't have the right equipment. We're not trained properly. We're looking at the gentleman, we played the video about the man in Grand Rapids, Patrick, God rest his soul. He was killed by an officer because the officer wasn't talented enough to do his job properly. That is a fact. The officer put himself in a situation to where he had to use his gun because he didn't have any skill set to apprehend the gentleman properly. So again, this is what happens when you have poorly trained officers. They're not qualified to do the job. They're out of shape. They lack the critical thinking skills to do the profession. And again, this is the outcome. So with the Amir Locke situation, those officers, first of all, there's way too many of them going into that room, that apartment, the way they did. It was poor tactic. The dynamic entry was horrible. They had no body shields, no bunker, right? These are the ballistic shields that we're supposed to carry SWAT. It's supposed to have when they're going into and making these entries into these homes. They didn't have that. If they had the proper equipment, they could have given him a little bit more time to put the weapon down, right? He's a legal gun owner in his house. First of all, here's the problem with that shooting.
It wasn't his house, though.
You said what?
It wasn't his house.
No, it wasn't his house.
It was his cousin's apartment.
But that's irrelevant. I'm gonna tell you what the problem was. The problem was it wasn't an arrest warrant. It was a search warrant for property. They were searching for evidence of a murder of what his cousin committed, allegedly. But the crime happened almost 4 months prior to them doing the search warrant. So technically, the question is, what kind of evidence are they looking for 4 months later? There was no the level of the level
they were still committing crimes even after that murder. His cousins were still committing crimes. They were still
Let me tell you why it's irrelevant. The crime that the evidence they were looking for, right? The evidence they were looking for a crime that happened 4 months ago, approximately 4 months ago, they're looking for shirt, clothing, keys to a Mercedes car that was stolen, right? And electronics, cell phone, the typical stuff we look for. They were looking for shirts with blood evidence and stolen car keys. That did not require dynamic entry from a SWAT team with high-powered rifles. I'm telling you from experience, it wasn't necessary. They could have 4 months later, no. Use a SWAT team maybe on an incident where the crime immediately happened within a day or two, then yeah, you want the SWAT team because it's active evidence that could possibly, what's the likelihood that they found all that stuff? The problem is, was that level of force needed to gain entry to the house for that type of evidence? No one was in danger. Again, we're talking critical thinking. That could have waited until later on in the afternoon. They could have knocked on the door. You guys, I've done these type of raids. I'm telling you, it was excessive. And because they used poor judgment as a team, as a unit, as a department, someone got killed who should not have been killed. First of all, they went through the door. It was no knock. Fine. They didn't have the proper equipment. What else did they do? They kicked the sofa. They saw him laying there on the sofa and they kicked it. They're screaming, "Hey, police, get the fuck on the ground." They're cursing, screaming, yelling. One could argue, right? Here's how I would challenge it.
How dare he sleep?
Show me an expert who will tell me how long does it take for a person coming out of a dead sleep to process information? When you wake up, how long does it take for you to process information? He lives in a bad community. Okay, he's had his gun with him. It's his house. He can do what he wants with his gun. He's a legal gun owner. So that's a non-factor and it's irrelevant to the conversation. When police are going into someone else's home, you have to use due regard. You are required to use an extra level of care because people can easily mistake you for a robber or a criminal. Because here's the problem. I know how criminals think. I know how real criminals and gangsters think. You know what they're going to start doing? They're going to start kicking in people's door and screaming police.
They already doing that.
Of course. And so the point is, so the point is they saw it work now on national television and they saw the police get away with it. So now they're going to come in with flashlights, right? And act like they're the police so you can submit to them. And then they're going to tie you up and take your belongings. Again, the police, when we see errors like this, we need to rise to the occasion and find solutions. What is my solution? They need to have a sound device that they throw into those rooms and into those apartments where the decimal is so high, right? It needs to make the announcement, police, police. It needs to be so recognizable that no one inside the apartment or the home can say that they could not distinguish that sound.
So should the officer be brought up on charges? Do you think he should be, Mark Hanneman, do you think he should be charged with murder?
I think he needs to be brought in charges. Absolutely. That was a bad shoot. Okay. The gun wasn't pointed at anybody. We are not allowed to shoot if we're not an immediate threat. Now, I had this debate with someone on my channel before. You know, I know the law. So again, what does an officer need to actually use deadly force? The Supreme Court says you need ability, opportunity, and jeopardy, right? Just because a suspect is holding a gun doesn't mean they're a threat. So unfortunately, in this profession, there's a thin line between a threat and a non-threat. I've talked to people who had guns in their hand. Sir, you need to drop it. Talk to people who had guns to their head. If they take the gun off the head, then of course it's game over, right? If they even look like they're gonna point it in my direction, you just can't shoot people because they're holding a gun. It doesn't work that way. And again, the law says, do you have the ability to do it? Yes, he had a gun. Does he have the opportunity to use it? Yes, he's in close proximity. Okay, where's the jeopardy at? Did he manifest a threat to actually execute that deadly force towards you? The question is, the gun was pointed downward and his finger wasn't on the trigger. Someone say, as an officer, are you looking at that? You're supposed to look at everything. Again, society has coddled police officers and make it seem like we're not good enough or we can't rise to the occasion to meet society's expectations. So the problem I have is we either need to tell people, the citizens, that we're not good enough to do this job and we cannot meet your expectations, or we rise and say we can meet it. So I think that is the big challenge right now. Officers have gotten away with being lazy and pathetic. It just is what it is. And the reason why I can say that with confidence is because I took the job seriously. And I wouldn't have made a mistake like that, right? So again, we don't take the job serious enough. The training isn't adequate. And again, every time you have a good situation in law enforcement doesn't mean that there wasn't something that could have been learned. Officers get away with the idea that they feared for their life. They say that, but then you see the lack of training, right? And the shooting we saw earlier with Patrick, you saw an officer who was out of shape. He had no skills. He relied on his taser. He had his taser taken. You guys, in the academy, we had drills where people would attack us and have to take our gun out of our holster after being pepper sprayed. I showed it on a video. I showed my actual training video in the academy of what that looked like. You know, it's again, but my training is not the same as everybody else's training. We're not all trained the same. That's another issue. That's a big misconception. Depending on what department. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just have a couple quick questions.
No, go ahead.
Well, more like a comment. But what about a national registry? How do you feel about that? Because I'm personally pro it. I think there's a national registry for doctors, for lawyers, for a lot of stuff where when they make mistakes, you can go, my dog's vet, I could go and look up if was ever sued, okay? So, and the other question I have is, why isn't there training for police officers? I know people who are flight attendants and they have to get recertified every year, and they're literally a waitress in the sky.
Give me one at a
People
time.
are screaming, defund the police. How you gonna train them if they're defunded?
So let me answer.
How about before that?
Right. Let me answer both of those. So, a national registry. The biggest problem with the George Floyd Policing Act is that we're relying on the federal government to pass that law, right? These reforms need to happen on a local level. It's easier to do it on a state level than it is on a federal level, because the feds are going to say, how difficult is it going to be for us to try to put together this registry when the states can do it themselves, right? It's easier for the states to do it themselves. For example, there's approximately 18,000 police departments, right, in this country, 18,000 police departments. I believe that there should be a registry for officers who people need to have access to it. I absolutely agree. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, right? If you want to keep your name off the registry, guess what? You do a better job. To me, it's just that simple. Again, we are public servants. Our information doesn't belong to us. It belongs to the public. So as long as the laws or the policies that people have don't put the officers in danger, I don't ever see it. I don't think anything's wrong with it. You'll never, if I see something that people have an idea and I say, nah, I think that's going to make it's unsafe for the officer, then I'll have pushback. But if it doesn't violate an officer's safety, right, because we do need protection from people being able to find us, attack us, and things of that nature, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. If an officer messes up, it needs to be documented and people need to have access to it. To your second point with the training isn't consistent across the board. That's a problem. I would also say the training isn't consistent enough because it costs money. And then when it comes to recertification, we do recertify every year, but it's over a few different things, certification. The problem is the type of training we need consistently, we're not getting, right? We shoot twice a year. We have to qualify on average. Every officer has to qualify for shooting their gun twice a year. Some officers struggle with that.
I heard that test is pretty easy.
And the test is pretty easy. And the problem too is when you're under high stress, your scores drop, your accuracy drops and everything like that. Yeah. They rely on us. This is how it works. It's on the individual officer to continue your training outside of the police department, and you have to fit the bill for it. That's why a lot of officers don't do it, right? Yeah. Money's already tight. You don't have time. You're tired, right? I was in a different situation. I did martial arts before I got into law enforcement. So I've already had good self-defense tactics and hand-to-hand training, and I fought a lot. I was a competitive martial arts fighter and a kickboxer. So I didn't have issues going into the police profession, not knowing how to fight. When I was in the academy, there are guys in there who's never been punched in the face, and these were grown men. Now, right? But when you get out here in the street, and I worked a predominantly Black community, we had white officers who were working in these communities with me, and some of these guys would give them a run for their money, right? And that's just the reality. So what needs to happen? Officers need to be reduced from answering so many calls. There's too many 911 calls that we're answering that are irrelevant. That would free up more time for us to do more training, relevant training, de-escalating training, hand-to-hand combat, and better self-defense tactics. We saw exactly in that video, if you play that video again with Patrick, you'll see the officer struggling just to handle him. No arm locks, no proper choking. He just gave up and said, I guess I can't do nothing else. I guess I might as well just shoot him. And the problem is, just because you're authorized to do something doesn't mean you should do it, right? There wasn't a reason for him to have to shoot him, but the law might say it's okay for him to do it. People are concerned about where he shot him at. It was very barbaric. Let's be real. But the law
I
does
think
not.
this was worse than the George Floyd shit, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The law doesn't the law doesn't dictate where an officer can deliver lethal force. It doesn't speculate. I mean, it doesn't, you know? What are the questions that you have though?
I know you said training. Those were my main. Well, I think the one comment was about the national registry, because I just don't understand how. Look, I'm a licensed loan officer. I'm non-practicing, but I'm licensed in 2 states. But that's a national registry. Anybody in any state who has my name can look up my information. If I have to file bankruptcy, any of my financial information gets put on there. The FBI does a background check before I can get that license.
Right.
Like, and that's a financial crime. So, like, realistically, even if I do it, I'm going to, like, a nice jail. I'm not going to, a bad jail. I don't want to go to any jail. But I'm just saying that it's very different. But the steps to do it and to relicense every year for my 2 states is $900. So I'm not currently licensed because I was like, I'm not doing anything with it. Why pay? But I'm just saying that, like, it just seems like it would be easier for me to become a police officer than it would be for me to be a loan officer, which is kind of a little insane.
That's the problem. The problem is this should be the hardest profession to get into. The issue is they let everybody do it. And everybody's not designed to do it. They don't have the mental fortitude to do it. I myself, though I consider myself to be a very talented officer, even I was let in at a young age, and I don't think I was fit to do the job. I'll be completely honest. You know, you talk about the young girl who came to your house. You're like, how are you doing this job? You're too young. Why are they picking young people? Because who else wants to do it, right? I didn't understand that at the time. At the time, I was like, I was high on piss and vinegar, you know? And so I didn't understand what I was actually truly doing. I never even understood the true dangers of it, to be honest. While I was in the academy, we had 2 officers killed on the same night by the same suspect. It was a horrible, horrible night. We had people quit that day in the academy, and that was a wake-up call to say, hold on, this is real. You know, this is real. I had coworkers lose their life in this profession, and it hurts, you know, because I knew them. They're good people, right? And so my thing is, someone brought this up and I didn't know this. This was back during the George Floyd situation. They said, why is it that a beautician, a barber, right, a makeup artist, they have to go to school for like 2 years to comb hair, right, to do hair, to color hair, to do nails, and police only do 3 months? You guys, it's embarrassing when you look at it like that, you know?
Do you have to pass a psychological test?
You do, but those are easy, right? They say, hey, Nathan,
but shouldn't it be more difficult?
How can you make it more difficult, right?
Well, not everybody passes the FBI because their psychological tests to the SEALs or just special ops. Like, sometimes they don't allow people because they're psychopaths.
Well, I will say this, because I applied for the FBI right before my accident. I was in the application process a year. I made it to the third stage. There's 6 stages, right? And my application was still active. They said on average, it takes about 2 years to get an approval to get into the FBI. And that's just to get to the academy. You know what they asked me? I had to put down my neighbors' information on both sides of where I lived at. They came to interview my neighbors. Again, they have a stringent process on how they examine and study and evaluate applicants. That level needs to be applied to state police officers, period. There needs to be extensive, more refined ways to filter out candidates. The reason why they don't do that, because they know if they're looking at 20 applicants, maybe 3 are gonna pass, right? 3 are gonna pass. So granted, we do need that because we need better quality people doing the job. You know, you can't have Tim, Tyrone, and Uncle Bucky putting on a uniform. You're gonna get these type of responses that we see. They're not qualified. So the feds have a very strict guidelines on their application process. At the same time, they also pay almost 6 figures starting out. So when you want people to go through these stringent processes, you got to be willing to pay them. Then guess what? To be an FBI agent, you got to have at least a minimum of a bachelor's degree. So again, I have my bachelor's, I have my master's. You go into the FBI with your master's, they're paying you 6 figures walking in the door. So again, I was 1 year in the process of the application process before my accident. Now I can't do it anymore because of my injuries. The injuries I sustained, I can't do the job physically.
But don't you think with the amount of interaction that the police have with the public, because let's be for real, the FBI takes serious cross state lines. So their interaction with the public is not as extensive as what police officers have. But with the amount of interaction that police officers do have, don't you think that process would be better to be able to weed out these bullies and these bigots and everybody else? Because not saying anything, but as far as a lot of money being concerned, if you're going to pay my teachers better and pay my police officers better, please, I'm okay with you raising my taxes. Now, for Ted Cruz to get a bonus, I'm done.
Well, you said it. What's the problem with that language you just used? It costs money. And with the sentiments of, you have a community of people who back certain organizations that want to defund the police. They feel like people are being over policed. And the problem is, we're being over policed because you're using the police for too many things. You're using the police to handle too many society issues. Police need to be handling specific problems, and then everybody else you're on your own, right?
So you said something about traffic stops and not having police do traffic stops. Don't you think traffic stops are some of the most dangerous encounters police have with citizens?
Yeah, for police.
I'm here on the corner of MLK and Medgar Evers, and it's a very tranquil scene compared to just a couple hours ago
where a drive-by shooting just took place. Excuse me, I'm getting live updates as we speak. I've just been updated to the amount of casualties from this drive-by shooting, and I'm getting reports that 2 people were actually declared deceased and 27 others were shot and injured, but are in stable condition. And although we must pray for the families of the fallen, we must also praise God for the aim of the super gremlin. If you want to know more about the victims of this crime, make sure you add BGZM News 17 on Patreon at www.patreon.com/blackgenzmindset. Also, don't forget to like the video, share the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and comment on the video to continue the discussion on how we can find solutions to all this gun violence in the streets. For more hard-hitting news coverage from the community, by the community, I'm Janquavius Jackson, here live, reporting from Atlanta, Georgia, BGZM News 17.
And cut.
All right, dog. Let's get the out of here before these niggas come back.
Whoa. Yo!
Ain't that nigga J?
Nah, that ain't me. That ain't me.
He just went live
That
with
ain't
that
me.
funky ass suit
That's
on.
that nigga. That's not me.
Hey, get that nigga.
Despise Jackson, here live, reporting from Atlanta, Georgia. Pray for me.
But if you're not a police, will it be dangerous? Right?
Well,
So-
if somebody's
so if you're-
breaking the law on the roads, how are they going to get arrested? If a social worker comes and pulls them over and says, "Hey, you're driving drunk and you need to be arrested," and they start resisting arrest, just like the brother from Detroit.
They're not their job. Their job. One, they're not going to be social workers. But my thing is, people are saying they want to reimagine. People are saying they want to reimagine policing. Right? I get what you're saying. I'm telling you what people are telling me. They don't like police encounters on traffic stops. So my job is to come up with solutions to what people are complaining about, right? The issues that people have, my job is to give them realistic solutions and practical solutions. If people are saying they don't like traffic enforcement, okay, what type of solution? We can pull officers away from that because, again, we're trying to reallocate our resources properly. We have too many officers invested in doing traffic stops on the interstate, sitting behind stop signs, right? And some people say they don't like that. They feel like it's a form of harassment. So what do they do in exchange? They put up speed traps and cameras where it takes a picture of your license plate and you get the ticket in the mail. You didn't have to have any confrontation with the officer. You feel better about your life. You get to go about your business, right? You get to go where you're going on
Traffic stops are also used to stop criminal activity.
I get that. Trust me, I know. But the whole idea, again, is we're trying to reduce how officers encounter the citizens, because it's been told that these encounters are reasons why we have a lot of shootings and negative outcomes. No, they're not looking at the behaviors of people. I don't know why. Welcome to America, sir, right? The reality is, are they going to argue the behavior of the citizen? Are they concerned about citizens being killed? We just saw a situation in this video where the officer pulled the person over for a legitimate reason and he resisted arrest and he ended up getting killed behind it. People are saying, should he have died behind a non-felony offense, right? The officer should have used enough common sense to know this was not serious enough. One would argue, though, he couldn't identify him, so he didn't know what he had. I'm gonna tell you why that's important, right? I did a traffic stop on a car because of the blacked out window tint. I had a tint meter. Go ahead,
Go ahead. You guys can go. I'm going to just show the super chats because I don't want to disrupt the conversations.
So I have a tint meter. It measures the quality of light that goes through the window to let me know the measurements, right? I knew it was illegal. I pulled him over. I smelled marijuana in the car, typical situation in that moment. You ask him to step out the car the whole 9 yards. I try to identify the people in the vehicle, right? The driver did not have a valid license. So I was gonna let the passenger drive. The passenger gave me a false name. Before I went back to go and check it, he jumps out the car and he starts running, right? I chase after him. I let him know I'm about to tase him. I tased him once. He fell. He rolled over. The prongs came out. He got up and ran again, right? I'm chasing him. I reload. I shoot him again, right? It misses. Cool. The taser's no good at this point, so I throw it down. I'm chasing after him. I tackle him down. At that point, me and him are fighting, right? Now, I know how to fight. There's no issues here. What does he do? He pulls out a knife, right? So I grab his hand because he's about to stab me, and I pin his arm down to the ground. He's kicking, doing all that. I start headbutting him. I said this to him, and I'll never forget. I said, "Oh, you're trying to kill me? Is that what we're doing?" I could have shot him in that moment. I could not shoot him because my right hand was holding down the hand that had the knife, right? I had to decide whether or not can I get to my gun fast enough to point it at him and shoot him? Or if I pull the gun out the holster, will he take it from me? Was it worth trying to draw my gun and risk getting stabbed? It wasn't. I was able to get the knife out of his hand. We're fighting. He turns over. He tries to lift me up off the ground. I start choking him out. By that time, my partner comes through the wood line.
Isn't the chokehold a legal maneuver now, though? You can't use the chokehold?
back in the but here's the thing.
Do you think that's limiting police officer?
Absolutely, it's limiting police officers. I'd rather be choked than catch a bullet.
Facts.
The problem is not the tool. The problem is officers who don't know when to utilize it properly and when to let it go, right? So again, with this gentleman here, Patrick, he should have been choked out. He should have choked him out. And so again, so in this situation, my partner came in a matter of time to help me get him in custody. Now, here's the thing. He gets down to the jail, they run his thumbprint, and they find out he's wanted for 3 counts of murder. 3 counts, 3 separate counts of homicide. We find out that in Rockdale County, what did he do? He committed a home invasion. Him and his partner tied some people up in the house, right? They hit the wrong house. They were trying to hit a drug house, right? A house that just, the guy just re-upped, and they hit the wrong house on the street. The same street, wrong house, like some idiots. But here's what happened. Tied the people up, innocent people. They killed somebody in the house. Then they flee from the house. The police are behind them, right? Because someone witnessed them going to the home. The police are chasing them. They run over a pedestrian and kill the pedestrian walking, trying to get away from the police. Guess what else? As they're driving, speeding through the neighborhood, they T-bone a car and kill a person in the car, right? So the driver gets out and runs, but the passenger's trapped. He gets caught. He snitches on the driver, of course. The driver's the one that I pulled over in my traffic stop. 6 months later, wanted for those 3 homicides, right? So we have to be mindful when situations like this, people say, hey, couldn't you just let him go? Yes, you can. But remember, you don't know why you're letting him go. You don't know what type of crime he could have committed before you stopped him. You could have stopped somebody who committed a sexual assault against somebody, right?
So do you really want somebody who doesn't have a weapon and who doesn't have training to be pulling an individual like that over?
Of course not. That's common sense. Of course not. I think everybody can attest to that. The problem is we want better quality trained officers. That's the issue.
Who should that be on the traffic stops? Who should be doing that? Should it be higher ranked officers, or what should it be?
I think if you have a way to where you can have like a security force, right, who pulls people over, because what's going to be the consensus? If the citizens know that the police are not doing traffic stops, they're going to do one of 2 things. They're either going to stop or not stop. If they stop, if you're a law-abiding citizen, you're going to take your ticket. You know this officer can't enforce anything. They don't have a gun and they don't have any of those things on you. You're not going to have any issues. Why? People have an issue with the police specifically. They're not going to do or harm, in my opinion, people who don't have the ability to bring force on them. So again, all I'm saying is these are solutions. These are solutions. People have issues with the traffic stop. I believe that if it's on the highway is one thing, but on the main street, unless it's something egregious, the police don't need to get involved, right? So if it's an accident and there's suspicion of maybe DUI or illegal activity, then the police need to get called. Outside of that, there needs to be a non-emergency vehicle to go and take the police report, right? Or cite someone from a traffic violation. Outside of that, you don't need an armed police officer to deal with that. And if you're a criminal, you're just not going to stop anyways.
All right, hold on.
Another thing, Keisha Lance Bottoms.
I might have to bring you back for part 2 next weekend, next Saturday, Nathan.
I'm down.
I mean, this is really good. I have to get off within 15 minutes because I got to prepare for a Saturday morning meeting. I appreciate everybody for coming up. Nathan, stick around. I want to get your final thoughts. Thank you, everybody on the panel. I appreciate y'all.
Appreciate it, Anton. Hey, I respect both of y'all brothers, man.
Yep.
Shout out to y'all.
Appreciate you, man. Good questions.
Gang violence and other kind of violence.
Guess what? I could be at work.